It's certainly getting squeaky bum time at the other end of the table in the Premier League. Obviously, all bets are off for Leeds and Leicester if Everton beat Bournemouth on the final day. Everton's 17th with 33 points. They've got Bournemouth at home. Leicester on 31 points. They're 18th. They've got West Ham at home. And Leeds United on 31 points, same as Leicester, in 19th. And they've got Tottenham at home. But all bets are off if Everton beat Bournemouth. That would be adios Leicester and adios Leeds. How have Leicester got themselves in this position, do you think, Simon? After surprising us all, 5,000 to 1, and they win the Premier League. Now it's gone pear-shaped, spectacularly so, and they're fighting for their very life.
I think it's a combination of a variety of things. I think it's a change in focus from the ownership, whose focus is not as committed. Not that they should be questioned and queried, because nothing goes on forever, but not as focused on the advancement of Leicester rather than the maintenance of it. I think Brendan Rodgers was very poor, and I don't care what people think of that. And I think the Leicester players have let themselves down and let their fans down.
But I think Brendan specifically, very poor. When you say very poor, I mean, Brendan's still extremely highly regarded. He's a top coach.
But there's no other industry in the world that you get...
Very poor, how very poor?
But there's very few other industries in the world, like football is there. How many people in big jobs get sacked for failing and then bounce up at the next biggest job? There's no other industry quite like it. It recognises failure and rewards it, and in fact enhances it a lot of the times, and sometimes gives it reasons for its failure. If Brendan Rodgers didn't want to manage Leicester City, then he should have resigned and walked away in the summer and given someone else a shake at it.
Yeah, but hang on, is it Brendan's fault?
His team.
Dean Smith hasn't got much out of them since he took over.
His team.
So have we oversold this squad of players?
No, they're not a great squad of players, but they're a better squad of players than second to bottom of the league, or third to bottom, whatever they are. They're a better squad of players than relegation. Now, of course, you can't keep selling all your players. It happens to all of you in the end. Southampton are case in point. You can't keep having your best players ripped out from underneath you and then expected to keep buying an economic version of them again and keep rebuilding. But they're better. They're better than what they are in terms of positional terms. Now, of course, you can't say they're better than because they are where they deserve to be. But where they should be, where they could be, is better than third from bottom in the league. There are other sides in this league that are not as good as Leicester City if Leicester City's players were performing at the highest level, coached at the highest level, managed at the highest level, and given the outcomes of the highest level based upon the coaching and player expectation, than Leicester. If you disseminate the Bournemouth squad and put it pound for pound and like for like and experience for experience and quality for quality against Leicester City, why are Bournemouth sitting where they're sitting and Leicester sitting where they're sitting? I'll tell you for why. Because Brendan Rodgers didn't do a particularly good job and the players have been allowed to perform the way they've been, and now they can't get themselves out of it. And if Dean Smith was the answer, what was the question? Dean Smith's last version of events was to help Norwich get relegated. Sorry, I know.
Nonetheless, last night was a very good point.
Well, yeah, but you know what? It's a great point to have gotten. 23 shots on goal by Newcastle, hit the post 3 times, plenty of opportunities to score goals. Leicester could have nicked it. It would have been a smash and grab.
Oh, yeah.
And to some extent, it would have made for an intriguing last game of the day of the season. Everton can't want for anything better. Sean Dyche, close your eyes, put your finger on who you think is going to stay up. Sean Dyche every time. But whether he's got the handbag carry or not playing because he's injured again is a different matter, is irrelevant. The bottom line is Everton cannot want for a better outcome. Bournemouth with nothing to play for. Nothing to play for. An absolutely febrile, feral crowd ready to be behind their side for this moment of destiny. They've been here before. Graham Stewart scoring against Wimbledon in the last game of the season to keep them in the division before. Everything hinges on this game. Leeds have got a shot. I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 teams win their last game. Because no one's got anything in on these games.
And if they do, Leicester and Leeds disappear, don't they?
By the way, do Brighton go into the Europa League, don't they? Because of Manchester City already winning the league and qualifying for the Champions League next year. Brighton can go into the Europa League, so I was wrong yesterday about them using the European Conference League. So another side can go into the 7th spot and get into the European...
So the least they'll get is Conference League.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's done. And that's what I was saying to you in front of me just on Sunday. De Zerbi was saying, this isn't the one I want. I want the Europa League.
But you might get it now, by definition.
They might get it now.
So with that in mind, going back to the original question, West Ham have got nothing to play for. Bournemouth have got nothing to play for. Spurs couldn't beat a rug. So where are we in these games? You can see...
You say that. I mean...
Spurs are a shambles.
Bournemouth players
shambles. Their players are an embarrassment.
Gary O'Neill will be saying, no matter what, go out there and show why we deserve to stay up.
And he will, right? And he'll say that. But when it comes to that, what comes out of a manager's mouth and goes into a player's ears can often be two different things. Otherwise, you wouldn't concede goals in the first minute of a game and you wouldn't concede them in the 46th minute because you'd be switched on and diligent and not half asleep at the wheel. The bottom line is necessity is the mother of invention, as we've discussed before. Everton are fighting for their lives. Bournemouth are fighting for their flip flops to get on the beach with. So with that in mind,
I refute that.
Well, it's been proven time and time again.
You'll eat your words if it's Everton 0, Bournemouth 2, won't you?
If it's Everton 0, Bournemouth 2, then Sean Dyche needs a thorough good kicking up the jacksie because he's got himself into a position where you can't want for anything better.
Oh, I agree.
He could have been out of it earlier, but he is where he is. If you just said to Sean Dyche, I'm going to give you got to win last game at home to Bournemouth. As you take this, you bit your arm off at the shoulder. Yeah, that's what he'd have done, and now he's got that opportunity.
Now on Everton, and we'll mention this when Noel comes in. When it comes to Manchester City, all sorts of chat of like, there's your medal, well done, you won the Premier League, but at the same time, there is big talk about potential rule breaking. 115 charges.
There's not potential talk. There's charges
facing Manchester City. There's charges, 115 of them, and we've got them, and we'll list them. We've got specifics on various breaches, alleged breaches, which we'll mention to Noel Gallagher. In the case of Everton, is that getting similar prominence?
Yes, of course.
And news coverage to Manchester City's alleged breaches?
Well, it's never going to, is it? Because they're not sitting top of the Premier League.
But it should, shouldn't it?
Well, possibly, yeah. I mean, there's an argument to be said that it shouldn't be swept under the carpet. There's an argument to be said that when we castigate Manchester City, we should castigate Chelsea as well because they operated on the same model. These are all fair arguments. But the bottom line is when you're talking about Man City, you don't have to go into whataboutery. You can just focus on Manchester City if you want. And when you're talking about Everton, you shouldn't airbrush past Everton. When Everton are the topic of conversation, Everton and their potential challenges should be made the focal points. When you're talking about Man City, whataboutery is a lazy way of getting past an argument saying, well, what about what he did? Well, so what they did? It's why about what you did. What you did is the focus of this conversation. Now, Everton and their potential challenges about where the money came from, how they've managed to go round financial fair play with what I consider to be egregious accountancy around transfer values that have underpinned their ability to just come beneath the financial fair play limits with 378 million top-line losses. And after all the allowable adjustments, including the recalibration of the transfer squad based upon the COVID depreciation of player values, and I think that's a little bit like, okay, fine, how do we get around that situation? I think they'll have something to face.
Well,
Everton.
Leicester fans, Leeds fans are going to be screaming from the rooftops on Monday if either of them have joined Southampton and Everton are safe.
But those are the rules. These are the rules. We've had this discussion before, but it's like anything. You're saying, why would Man City be the subject matter and not Everton? When Leicester City won the league, they were the subject matter around the world. They're not the subject matter around the world now. They're getting relegated, are they? It's just a case of the biggest name in the room is the one that garners and gains the most attention. If your Premier League champions have been accused of 115 breaches of financial fair play governance, that's the news that's going to resonate. And whether you want to go into whataboutery and say, oh, what about Everton? Well, with due respect,
it's not really whataboutery. What is pivotal here is Premier League status
for Everton.
Yeah,
yes, of course,
for all of them,
of course. Well, yeah, but Man City's Premier League status is assured. They're winning the Premier League.
No, in the case of Everton,
yeah.
So what's your Premier League status is the key point, isn't it?
Well, yeah, tragically for them.
Because Leicester and Leeds will be saying on Monday morning, hang on.
Well, but Leicester and Leeds...
If you're going to punish Everton next season, you should have done it now, and one of us might have survived.
But this is a rehash of a conversation we had the other day, but we'll do it. The rules are the rules, and they are voted for and put forward and amended and changed and finessed and directed by the 20 members of the Premier League. So all of these clubs that don't like this could have lobbied and persuaded the other 14 to say, look, when a serious charge gets brought against a football club, we've all got to agree that it gets settled within a certain period of time. No. And it can't be complicated and convoluted, and it can't be caught up in legal processes, and no one can present evidence and challenge and rebut and go through the legal process. In football, when someone wants to take away your livelihood and throw an allegation against you, you really don't get any time to defend yourself because we must have our moment. And the reason why the clubs haven't voted for that is because one day they'll be on the other side of the argument. And yes, there'll be a hard luck story for Leicester and for Leeds and for whoever else is going down as a result of potentially Everton possibly being sanctioned. But aren't we in the territory of presumed innocence? Aren't people having to prove guilt before they can just make someone guilty?
We're not in the same territory as the Manchester City situation, whereby...
But Man City are in the same place as well. They're not guilty yet, are they?
No, but you hear all the urgings of regards Manchester City and the 115 breaches. That should be sped up. It should be sped up. We should be hearing some kind of consequence to that now. But you don't hear the same about Everton.
You're guilty of listening to an echo chamber, which is the media. You don't know if that's bouncing around football. That's bouncing around the back pages of newspapers.
Of course it is.
No, that's bouncing around the back pages of the newspapers in the sports sections because it's a good story. Because Man City, the champions, what a hook. How can we keep writing this one up? It can't get better. This is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, but Everton, potential Premier League survivors, what a hook.
But that's
a story.
It doesn't
as
have
well.
the again, like you equate. When Leicester City won the league, all the American fans go, Leicester City? And they just won the league? No, they're not going, Leicester City have just got relegated, are they? Because it's the top story, the nature of the things that are achieved in the Premier League, not the things that are lost, that resonate with everybody around the world because people are lazy and they have butterfly brains.
Really? You're in the media. Why don't you give it the same kind of coverage?
But I do. I'm
do.
constantly pushing back against the observations. I'm constantly talking about Mashiri at a time when it was designed to be popular by suggesting Mashiri. Well, what am I supposed to do? Just suddenly, in the middle of a subject when we're talking about Martin Keown's shortcomings, I just bring up Everton.
No, but it almost does seem that you almost voluntarily you hammer City, but you don't do the same with Everton.
I do. Every time the subject matter comes up about Everton and we're talking about it, I'm the first person to suggest that Everton need to be looked at carefully. I looked at it last year with Kelvin Maguire when he came on here and talked about the nature of Everton's situation. I have always alluded and been careful not to get myself or the station into any kind of problems about where this money comes from.
Right, okay.
So come on now.
Okay.
Manchester City, like all of us, I'm no different to most people. I don't carry around 92 football clubs and their individual challenges in my mind. But what you do is you look at the champions. So maybe I'm as lazy and vacuous as the rest of you in the media.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.